Hi everyone, and very happy to be here. Our presentations actually are a great follow-up from the two presentations previously. You'll see a bunch of different connection points, I think. The first presentation, there are two presentations about this particular course from different angles. The first one was supposed to be given by Hedia Najafi, and she designed the slides. Unfortunately, she fell sick and she couldn't be here, so I will present to her slides and then I will give my presentations afterwards. You can stop me at any time with questions, or we'll have hopefully time to discuss at the end. So we're going to talk about a MOOC that ran on edX this summer called Inc. 101X, Teaching with Technology and Inquiry. And it was a MOOC designed for in-service teachers to support them as professional development in how to use technology to support changing their pedagogical practices. The goal was really K through 12 teachers. That was very strongly suggested in all of our promotional material. We did get also quite a few higher education teachers and also some museum and of course some general audience. But it was actually, from our surveys, it was surprisingly focused around those professional groups, which meant that we got a wealth of experienced people into our MOOC, and that's one of the things that we really wanted to take advantage of. For teachers, and we come from the Ontario Institute for Studies and Education in Toronto, but I'm sure these issues apply to North America as well. Once you leave teachers' college and you are in practice, there are some professional development opportunities. They tend to be sometimes practice-oriented. It's difficult to do them well online. There's certainly limited time for doing them, as well as, of course, teachers being very busy during the school year. And a lot of the courses tend to be quite discipline specific. So what we were seeing was an opportunity for a MOOC that was using new practices that was run during the summer, where we were hoping that the teachers would have a bit more time, and that went across disciplines, but we still used the teachers' disciplines for grouping, which you'll see soon. So the idea was, this actually came about as an opportunity to collaborate with the University of Toronto Schools, which is a lab high school affiliated with the university and that has been doing a lot of innovative practices. So we were able to have people from our university who've been researching pedagogy and technology for many years, collaborate with the headmaster and the teachers at this high school who have the in-class experience. And because it's a lab school, we're actually able to get permission from the teachers to use live video, well, not live, but authentic video from classroom situations, which is typically difficult for privacy reasons. This comes out of a long research program of my supervisor, Jim Slada, who has been working on his framework called Knowledge, Community, and Inquiry. And there's a number of PhD theses and a bunch of articles published on this, most of it focused on K through 12 teaching situations. But because he teaches in higher education, he's also applied it to his own course. And this MOOC actually came out of a university course for pre-service teachers that he's been teaching for about 8 years. It started out as a seminar class of about 25 students, highly interactive, using a lot of the technologies that we were talking about, wikis, blogs, Twitter, having students research and present on technologies, and coming up with a final project, which would be a lesson design that would integrate both the ideas, the content, and the theories from the course, and of course the students' personal, teachables, disciplinary interests. 2 years ago, the curriculum was reorganized. The number of electables was shrunk, and suddenly we had, instead of 25 students, 85 students, still on campus, still live face to face. But we had a challenge in how we could actually, still teach according to the values that we believed in. And at that point, I came in as part of my PhD thesis and said, let's look at how we can use technology, hybrid teaching, scripting and automation to actually not switch to a lecture mode, but keep what was really valuable about that course. And this summer, we said, okay, 25 to 85, let's go 2,000. Let's go MOOC. Okay, it's not 50,000 because it's a very specialized topic, but it's still a different scale. So the KCI framework is based on scaffolded inquiry. Now, there are some theories of inquiry, and we're very inspired by, for example, Marlene Scardamelia's knowledge building. However, these are unbounded inquiry. The authentic inquiry where you really want the students to come up with the research questions and be able to follow them. And that works great in primary school, because that's exactly what you want them to do. You want them to be inspired and to learn how to think as scientists, to have constructive discussions with each other, and saying, instead of saying you're stupid, saying your theory doesn't explain what I just observed, right? That's for a third grader, that's a pretty big step. In secondary and especially high school, that breaks down, because as a teacher you have curriculum goals, and you can't just step away from that. You can't just spend half a year exploring really deeply some topic, no matter how interesting that topic is. So what Jim was interested in is really how can we have this deep inquiry and collaboration, but we still guarantee the teacher that they meet their curriculum goals. So we start out with scaffolded inquiry activities, and a good example from a previous K-12 project was where you had lots of groups that were learning about different diseases. So you have the circulatory system, you have the heart, and then you get a Wiki template. So with the headlines, and now you need to go out and find some information about. You're going to be an expert on this particular disease. Of course, everyone else have access to your Wiki. So now the class as a unit have come up with this indexed knowledge base on diseases that map to these accessible knowledge goals that are open to the emergent themes and community voices, but also map to the content expectations. Then we want you not to be just an expert on a specific disease. We want you to understand all of these diseases and also how they interact. And that's why the second step is an inquiry project, where you have, for example, case-based learning. You have someone coming into with a diagnosis, and you need to understand what disease that is by looking at the pages generated by all of your peers. And so, of course, knowing that the knowledge that you generate is going to be accessed by your peers, ideally also makes you more motivated about producing a good product. What's also interesting is, after the course, all that knowledge that is generated and curated by the students, is that just thrown away, or is that actually turned into something durable? And so in the university course on teaching with inquiry, every year we send students out to gather information about interesting products, interesting teaching approaches when it comes to smart boards, clickers, and mobile phones, writing up, that is actually something that's now a durable resource. That's the wiki that we've been working on for 8 years. And that next year the students can come in and build upon, because technology changes. Our ideas change. So it's not done, but it's also not something that's just wasted. So these were kind of the main principles of this course that I was mentioning. And we used a wiki platform for the main collaboration. And you see here, you have right away access to look at the projects, the designs that were made in previous years, right? So you come into this course, and we try to foster this sense that you're part of a knowledge community. And of course, that's also because these teacher candidates, in half a year will be out in schools. They'll be the young teachers surrounded by their seniors, and it's very important for them to understand what it means to be part of a community, and how, hopefully, whether they stay in touch with the students from our university, or whether they find communities online that they can participate in, that's really the way for them to be able to take this into practice. There's a final assignment, this lesson design, which I mentioned, which is also scaffolded in terms of complexity and in terms of themes. So every week there's a new theme, and for example, in week 5, you might talk about collaboration. What's the theory of collaboration? What are some great examples? What are some technologies that can foster collaboration? And then go and look at your lesson design, which is, which you work on every week for the whole course, and how can you now enable more collaboration, right? Next week, we're talking about tangible devices. Next week, we're talking about ethics. How is your lesson design ethical? What are some of the concerns that you need to consider? Now, as we were trying to turn this into MOOC, we had a lot of concerns. We really didn't want to, we wanted to show, not tell. So we didn't want to show people a lot of videos telling them to be interactive and that technologies can be really transformative. But we weren't really sure to what extent we could do that, or what was the best way to do that. So one of the things we thought of was this idea that you put a course on the edX course listing, you sign up, it starts in a month, now what do you do? Nothing. You wait for a month. And we thought, what if we can take advantage of this time? So we set up we called it the lounge. It started about a month before the course started. So the course started on 1st of July, but I think it was supposed to open 1st of June. I think it was a little bit delayed. But anyway, you came into the lounge, you could do the survey, which we used for understanding who were taking our course and putting people into groups. And you could start reading about the course, you could start participating in the forums. So it's a bit of an idea of warming up to the course, so that when in the first week of the course, we kind of hit the ground running. Now, I'll talk a lot more about the technical kind of setup of the course later, but basically we had a bunch of external services that that were all the interactive activities, because it's very difficult to do that within the core edX platform. To access any of those services, you had to go through the intro survey. There were only actually a few questions that you had to fill out, but you had to go through that process because that's how we capture data about you that integrates the two platforms. If you didn't do that, all of that information on edX was still available. You could watch all the videos, you could discuss in the discussion forums, you could do the quizzes, you know. And in total, we had probably about 8,000 people who signed up for our course. About 2,200 ever went through the survey. So, but I mean, of the 8,000, probably 4,000 never even watched a single video, right? There are people who sign up and forget all about it. So for me, the number that's really relevant is the 2,200. But there might have been people who actually went through the whole course, watched all the videos, and were happy with that. And that's good. I mean, we're planning to take all those videos, put them on YouTube, and make them publicly available. So that's a valid resource in itself, but it's not what I'm really focusing on in this talk. Once you went through the intro survey, based on that information, we generated these interest groups that you were put into, and then you had a choice. Basically, to get the statement of accomplishment, you had to do you didn't have to do the videos, but you hopefully should do the videos, the quizzes, there were reflections, and then there were simple assignments every week that were designed to feed into the design process, but that were maybe brainstorm activities, do a little bit of research, do some feedback. Then we had kind of and we were very inspired by, for example, the DAL MOOC design, the red pill and the green pill. We talked about that internally, we didn't actually call it that. But this idea that, if you really want to get engaged, this is what everyone has to do in the 4-credit university course. Because, you're getting a credit. You are expected to work a large number of hours per week. For MOOC, we can't expect that from everyone. We want to have that option. So if you want to get really down and dirty, you can go and find a team and actually design a technology and inquiry lesson together. Like make a lesson plan over the whole course of the MOOC. You got no credit for that. And that was an interesting decision. I mean, I discussed that with Jim. Should we, maybe that should be a requirement, and if you just want to watch the videos, you don't get the statement of accomplishment. But he said, I mean, we didn't really care very much about the statement of accomplishment and the grading structure at all, because we wanted people to come to learn, not to show how much they knew. But either way, we said, if you just want to go through the course, you get the statement of accomplishment, bye-bye, hope you had a good experience. If you want to go deep into this thing, then what you're getting is value in itself. So we gave no credits for that. And I'm quite impressed at the number of people who actually chose to participate. So we had the week 0, the teacher's lounge, which I mentioned, the SIG selection, resource sharing. So one of the things we did before the course had started was starting to have people brainstorm about interesting technology resources in their subject area. So this was the adding resources form. These were the 6 teams for the 6 weeks, and basically they were mapped to stages of developing the lesson design as well. So in the weekly design, we had the curricular content, and we typically had 3 different kinds of videos. We had videos by Jim there on the left, who gives kind of the researcher theoretical perspective. This is what we're working on right now in universities. These are the big theories. This is the history. Then we have Rosemary Evans, who's the principal at the University of Toronto Schools, or some of the teachers there who would be talking specifically about, these are some of the things I've been doing in class. These are the practical issues that I run into. These are some of the lessons learned. And then we have authentic videos of actually running these kind of exercises in classrooms. And I think for teachers, that became really valuable because they're often quite skeptical of having some academic telling them, what works in theory. We had an inquiry track where people would do brainstorm, would rate and review, tag resources, and later as the design projects got going, they would provide feedback to design projects. And we were not interested in peer review in the sense of, grade this on a rubric, this is good or bad. We were much more interested in constructive feedback. So again, this week we're doing collaboration. Here's what a certain design group has gotten to so far. How could they add more collaboration? And then we would take, of course, those answers and feed them back to that design team. We used the special interest groups, the 10 groups that we designed. We actually used a cohort feature on edX to do the discussion forums. So when you went to the discussion forum, you would, for certain of the discussions, you would only see the posts from your special interest group, so that it would be a little bit more on topic. Because one of the special features of doing a course for teachers is that you get kindergarten teachers, you get primary school math teachers, high school arts teachers, auto tech teachers, right? And while there are certain principles in common, there's also a lot of specificity. And so being able to group them and also having the number of students that we can actually break it down fairly granularly, I think made for a better experience for the students. We had weekly personal reflection questions. And we had this idea of a shared knowledge base, which comes from the theoretical design. We brought in actually a lot of resources from the previous course that had run at the university, examples of lesson designs, examples of resource collections, and then we were trying to really make a lot of the content that was submitted by the students during the course to index that with tags and make it searchable, make it accessible for the students, and useful when they were doing the lesson designs. So here's a quick example. I'll come back to this later, where they're tagging resources. And once the course finishes, and it has finished now, just very recently, we're planning to share a lot of this material on the public wiki. So when students signed up to do the lesson designs, they clicked off and said, yes, it's okay for me to share this publicly. So a lot of their lesson designs are already public. I'll give you the URL. A lot of the technology resources that they assembled, we're planning to make public, and hopefully maybe in the future, if another MOOC or a university course will build on this.